Welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Podcast on the Brink, your weekly dose of Indiana University basketball news and discussion. I'm your host, Jerod Morris. Podcast on the Brink is a joint production of the Assembly Call and Inside the Hall. For complete coverage of IU basketball, visit assemblycall.com and insidethehall.com. On this week's edition of Podcast on the Brink, Alex had a chance to talk with Robert Johnson on Monday afternoon as Robert gets prepared for the 3-on-3 competition he will be taking part in San Antonio this weekend. And they touch on a number of subjects. Robert talks about when he knew that Indiana was his choice. He discusses what he saw in OG and Juwan early on that suggested they would be high-impact players. He talks about the primary difference in Indiana's game-by-game preparation this season with Archie, plus what he sees in Archie that makes him believe that Indiana's new coach can lead a consistent winner in Bloomington, plus who he thinks has a chance to make a, quote, major jump next season. You're definitely going to want to stick around for that. All of that and more on this edition of Podcast on the Brink with Robert Johnson. Buying tickets can be complicated and confusing, but there is a better way to buy with SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every type of live event because whether you're searching for a last-minute deal, planning a night out with friends, or need to find the perfect gift, SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, and it's all fully guaranteed. There is nothing quite like being there in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone right now, and it is by far the easiest way that I have found to shop for tickets because I can be anywhere, and with just a few taps, I can instantly find seats. And I'm planning on using the SeatGeek app here in just a few weeks. I was actually just texting with a fellow IU fan friend last night, and we're plotting going to see Yogi play for the Mavericks. It's a little hard for me to do that during the IU season, but once the season is over, I plan on getting out there at least once, hopefully a couple times, and I'm definitely going to use the SeatGeek app because when I've done it in the past, that's how I've gotten my tickets, and it really is easy, really the best way to do it. And the reason for that is because SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever because they save you time and money by searching multiple ticket sites to compare prices and find you amazing deals. And one way to make that deal even more amazing is to use the promo code BRINK, B-R-I-N-K, because when you do that, you get $20 off of your first SeatGeek purchase. So the instructions there are just download the SeatGeek app, enter the promo code BRINK, B-R-I-N-K, and you will get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
We're pleased to be joined on this episode of Podcast on the Brink by a man who needs no introduction to Indiana fans. Robert Johnson is with us on this week's episode. Thanks for taking the time, Robert. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So I want to go back to the beginning of your IU career and then fast forward a little bit to now. These 4 years, I'm sure, had to go by really fast for you. Did things go as you had thought they would going in, or have things played out maybe a little bit differently, and how so?
Yeah, that's something I did, a lot of reflecting on, obviously, as the season has been over for a while now. You get a chance to look back at some of the things that's happened throughout my career. But I think for the most part, it turned out in ways that, I liked, and in some ways that it turned out in ways I didn't think it was going to go. But I think that's life in a nutshell. You have certain expectations of this or that, and sometimes you exceed those expectations. Sometimes you might fall a little short, but I think at this point, it's all how you respond to it and how you learn from each situation, whether it was, positive or not as the outcome that you were looking for.
When you look back to your college decision, I think a lot of people were surprised. I think when you picked Indiana, obviously that was the school that you visited first, and you also had, I think, North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, and you visited Indiana first, if I recall correctly, when you took your official visits.
Yeah.
When did you know that you were going to go to IU? Was it after you did all the visits? Was it after the Indiana visit? How did that process go for you, looking back on that?
Yeah, I was talking to one of the coaches about that. We were talking about recruiting and things like that, and I was talking to him about that the other day. I think for me, I didn't really know until probably 3 days before. And I just knew I had picked a date when it was time to start to really lock in and make a decision. I just picked a date so that it would put me in a position where I had to decide, because I knew that I had a date picked already and had everything set up for an announcement. And I think that allowed me to lock in. And then I think 3 days before, that's when I really knew that it was going to be Indiana.
So you get to IU, and I'm sure you'll remember this, but the trip you guys took that summer to Montreal, I was up there. That was kind of the first time getting a chance to see you play in an IU uniform. And then you get back to Bloomington. Things are going normal. The season's going to start. And then obviously the accident happens when Devin Davis gets hurt. And obviously a lot of things changed at that point.
Right.
This was, you're just a couple months into your college career. You had obviously nothing to do with the situation, but how difficult of a situation was that for you to go through, just with everything that you guys had to deal with and everything surrounding that unfortunate accident?
Right. I think it was really, really difficult. Really, for the simple fact that Devin, even in that short time, he was close to us. He was one of our teammates and one of our brothers. And so first and foremost, to see him in that type of situation, it was tough on all of us, because you didn't really know how it was going to turn out at certain points. And then, as he started to get better, it was just a hard situation dealing with, knowing that, we was going to be without him. And he had a long road to recovery to get back to, where he wanted to be. And, we definitely, I talked to him recently during the tournament and just told me I was proud of him for, where he's come. Because, a lot of people in that situation, I feel like it would have been tough, and it could have been easy, to give up basketball altogether. So to come back and respond like he did was big. But I think it was tough, with that, how close we were to him, and then still having the season to prepare for it, because at the end of the day, we still had to go out there. We still had to start to practice again every day. We still had to go to class, and we still had to, try to press forward and make the most out of the season. So I think it was just a tough situation to start off with as a freshman.
And so then you guys obviously rebounded from that the best you could. You had a pretty successful season, made the tournament, lost to a really good Wichita State team. You kind of look back at that team and see what Fred VanVleet's now doing in the NBA. Ron Baker, obviously a pro, so not like you guys got an easy matchup there. But then the next season, obviously you get Thomas Bryant, and you go into the season feeling pretty good about things. And then early on, you kind of hit some bumps in the road there too. I mean, you have the tough trip to Maui, and then you have the Duke loss, and there's people criticizing the coaching staff, criticizing the players. Was there a moment that season that you look back on and you say that was a turning point for us, for you guys to be able to turn it around from how you started?
Yeah, it was so long ago. It's hard to pinpoint an exact moment where I felt like it just all clicked for us. But I think the one thing about that team, I think we started to progress each day, and I think it got to a point. I feel like it started with Yogi. It got to a point where we just wanted to build each day and lock in together and try to eliminate all the noise, that we were facing and make the most out of the season. And I think, once Yogi had that mindset, it just trickled down through everybody else. And, we just came together and tried to just to be connected, just be as connected and as locked into each other as we possibly could. And I think that turned out well for us.
So that season, you guys obviously go on. You beat pretty much everybody in the Big Ten. I think that year, went something like 15-3, win the Big Ten title outright, and then you have that run to the Sweet 16. When you look back on that season, is there any moment or two that you remember, more vividly than others as standing out? Like when you reflect back on that team, is there anything that a particular game, a particular moment that really kind of stands out to you from that season?
Not a particular game or moment. I just remember the tournament was so fun because I think we took the attitude we had as far as the Big Ten, regular season and tried to carry that over into the tournament. And, it was even that much better because there was a lot on the line. And I still think if I'm not saying this was the reason, but I still think if I was able to play, things might would have turned out a little different as far as that North Carolina game. But I think that team, especially during that time, during the end of the season, was so locked in and connected to each other that it was definitely fun to be a part of.
That season also, I thought one of the things that really stood out was kind of the progression from beginning of the season of both OG and Juwan. It kind of seemed like early in the season, both of those guys were just kind of feeling their way. And then by the end of the year, they were both obviously big parts of what you guys were doing. Was that something with both of those guys that you saw in them right when they came on campus? Like, these guys are going to be difference makers, or is that something you don't really see until the games start and the season gets underway? Because, OG and specifically, people always give me a hard time because I wrote some things early in that season that I didn't know that he was going to be able to give you guys much. And then by the end of the season, people were talking about him leaving for the NBA, and now he's obviously starting in the NBA. But with those two guys, what did you see with them when they first got on campus, and then by the end of their freshman season, what allowed them to take on the roles that they did?
Right. I think the best sign is obviously is a physicality side to it. A lot of freshmen that come in, you could tell right away that it's going to be hard if they don't get their body right and get a lot stronger. I think those two, they came in with pretty much the bodies that would allow them to compete, but bigger than that, I think they came in with the mindset that they were ready to learn. They were always soaking up anything that was being told to them as far as the older guys and the coaches, and they just bought into everything that the team needed them to do to win, no matter how small it might seem or what that role might be. They brought into that, and I think that was a good foundation for them to grow from.
One guy I want to ask you about before we get to more Robert Johnson specific questions, but Thomas Bryant, I thought he was always interesting to watch, just as an observer of somebody that covers the team, just the emotion that he showed on the court. Was that how he was at all times in practice? Was he always talking and showing emotion, or was that just something that happened during the games? And for a guy like you that doesn't really show as much emotion, you're not an outgoing vocal guy, at least not on the court that I've seen too often. What was it like to play with someone like Thomas that pretty much wore his emotions on his sleeve at all time?
Right, and then he was definitely like that all the time, even through practice, off the court, or whenever. He was always that type of person. But I think it was great for us, for the simple fact that he was who he was, and at a lot of times it always gave us an energy boost. I feel like that's something that you can tell that you miss at certain times when you need the crowd to get in or something like that. He was the one that always got them involved, and at the end of the day, that's never really a bad thing. So I think that was really good for us.
Hey, it's Jerod. I'm going to hop in here for just a second and remind you to check out our friends at HoosierProud.com. If you haven't checked them out already, I know a lot of you have because so many of you have posted in the Inside the Hall Premium Forum about how you've gone to HoosierProud.com and picked up, T-shirts either about Indiana, the university, or just the state of Indiana because they have such a wide selection there at HoosierProud.com. And so if you haven't been, go to HoosierProud.com and check them out. And even if you have been, you should go again because they've added new stuff. And they may have added new stuff since the last time that you went. One of their biggest developments this season is that they got the officially licensed IU gear. And so they've got a bunch of new basketball shirts. They've got football shirts. They've got soccer shirts there. So a lot of the sports that you want to support at Indiana University, you can do that specifically with T-shirts that you can get from HoosierProud.com. Plus, every purchase of a T-shirt at HoosierProud.com supports Indiana-based charities. And right there on their website at HoosierProud.com, they tell you what all of those charities are that you will be supporting. And they love our listeners here at Podcast on the Brink, and so they give you 15% off of your entire order. So when you go there, you can add as much stuff as you want to your shopping cart, the officially licensed IU gear, the state celebrating unique elements of the Hoosier site, or the Inside the Hall T-shirts, because those are there as well. Put as much of that as you want into your shopping cart. You will get 15% off all of it. Not just one shirt, not just the Inside the Hall shirts, but all of it. So next time you get a chance, go to HoosierProud.com, check out everything that they have, and then use the promo code BRINK, B-R-I-N-K. That's promo code BRINK at checkout, and you will get 15% off. All right, now back to Alex's conversation with Robert Johnson, and they're about to get into the differences that Robert saw this year and how they prepared on a game-by-game basis with Archie, as well as what he has seen in Archie Miller and the foundation of the program that he is building that leads him to think that Indiana can be a consistent winner moving forward. That is next right now.
Obviously, your junior season was rough because how you guys started, beating Kansas, North Carolina, and then you had the coaching change. And obviously I don't want to dig too deep into that because, you had a lot of good things that happened with Coach Crean. He was the one that brought you to Indiana, and I'm sure that relationship's so good for you. But, this year with Archie Miller, and, I don't want to ask you, what the positives are versus the negatives of either coach, but what was maybe the biggest thing that you had to learn or you had to adjust to playing for Archie this year that maybe you weren't used to previously under the old staff?
Right. I think one of the major things was, with our old staff, we pretty much game plan for each game specifically to that team. And the things that we did day to day usually was predicated upon like who we were playing and what type of defense we were playing and what type of actions we would run. And this year I feel like, our defense, our coverages were always the same. We were always going to play the same style of defense, and we were pretty much always going to have the same type of early offense and, core set of plays that we went to. So I think that would probably be the biggest thing that stood out.
Does that lead to less preparation, I guess, in terms of, I know you're preparing for other team. So basically what you're saying is you weren't concerned as much this year from your perspective on who it was you were playing. You were more worried about what you guys were doing as a team and let the other team kind of figure out how they're going to play against you. Whereas, previously you may have been focused just solely on one opponent. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Right.
So what about Archie Miller? You're obviously not going to play for IU anymore, so you'll be watching the program from afar. But for fans who maybe have the question, what about Archie Miller is going to lead him to be the guy who can, obviously get Indiana back to where people want it to be? As someone that's played for him for a year, what do you see in him that makes you confident that he's going to be able to bring Indiana back to where fans want it to be?
Right. Well, playing for 4 years and, playing with a lot of great players and, winning the Big Ten championship and then obviously playing against a lot of great teams, that have done great things as well. I think I've gotten a pretty good gauge of what the good teams are about, and I think that's some of the same values that I see from them is some of the same things that he stressed to us throughout this year, and I feel like his philosophies are built upon things like being a harder playing team, being the most physical team, just things that regardless of how many shots you make or what kind of calls you get, things that you could always being the better defensive team and most connected team on offense and defense, things like that. I think regardless of the things you can't control during the game, if you can go into, any game knowing that you do those things well, I feel like from what I've seen from the better teams, it always gives them a chance to win, and that's something that I feel like he's built upon.
A lot of people also, and we asked you about this all season, the pack line defense and the principles that are different under Archie than from what you guys were used to previously. How big of an adjustment was that? Was that something that, we wrote about that all year? Was that something we made too big of a deal out of, or was it really something that took a lot of learning from you guys and adjusting? Because it did seem like where you guys were early in the season, for example, the Indiana State game, to where you were later in the season, you looked like two totally different teams. So from my perspective, it did look like maybe early in the season you guys were really trying to, grasp this concept. But I'm just curious from your perspective how big of an adjustment it was.
I think it was for the team. It was a big adjustment. But to Coach Green and the previous staff credit, a lot of the concepts and things that we talked about, as far as our man-to-man defense, were the same in a lot of ways. I just think the biggest difference was the consistency of, this how we're gonna guard this every single time, and if we get beat that way, there's a reason that we got beat that way, and we're gonna look at it and see where we didn't do our job, and try to get better from it that way. And I think that's one of the differences.
As far as your game goes, you obviously made a ton of strides from where you were as a freshman to the end of this year. I mean, you got a lot stronger, became a better finisher, and I know your shot this year wasn't probably as consistent as you would have liked, but your progress from freshman to your senior year, what would you say maybe were the two or three things where you really feel like you got better over the course of those 4 years?
Yeah. I think I got better, all around at certain things. I definitely think from my freshman year to this past year, I definitely got better at, going off the dribble and creating my own shot. Like you said, finishing around the basket, finishing through contact. I think I was definitely a better on-ball defender as the years progressed. So yeah, those would probably be a couple things.
I got a couple questions here. I actually asked some of our readers if they had any questions for you. I don't want to ask you a couple of these quickly. Someone wanted to know what your fondest non-basketball related IU memory has been.
Fondest non-basketball related memory
from your time at IU.
I don't know. Probably. I don't know. That's a tough one. I had so many great memories with so many different people. It's hard to pinpoint one. But I definitely think it's probably a memory from a Little 5 week. I could say that much.
Yeah. What about the funniest player that you played with in the 4 years? Who was the funniest guy, funniest teammate you had, and why was that guy the funniest teammate you had?
The funniest. Maybe because it's more recent, but Johnny Yeager is he's hilarious. I mean, I think he's just funny because it's funny seeing him from last year into this year. I just feel like he came out of his shell So a lot of things he does, like, you never seen or seen him act like that, but now we more used to it. But I think he's probably one of the funniest teammates that I've had.
What, in your opinion, obviously I'm going to guess that you think Assembly Hall is the best Big Ten basketball environment, but not counting Assembly Hall, in terms of the Big Ten venues, you've played in all of them. Which was maybe your favorite to play in other than Assembly Hall, and which, in your opinion, was the most difficult to play in?
I think my favorite was Ohio State, just because it feels like a an NBA style arena. I kind of like how that court is set up. And then the toughest is probably Michigan State.
Is that just because of the noise or where the students are?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I don't think it's the noise as much. I don't know. It's just something about Michigan State makes it hard, to play there.
Who was maybe the guy in the Big Ten that you, out of your 4 years, enjoyed going up against or playing against the most? Maybe not the guy that you had the most trouble with, or the guy who maybe guarded you better than other guys, but in terms of just going out there and competing against, who from another Big Ten team, who was the guy that you maybe enjoyed going against the most?
There's a lot of great guys in the Big Ten. I'll probably say Nate Mason over the years, Brian McIntosh over the years, Melo Trimble when he was here. I'll probably say those few.
Melo Trimble, he had a rough couple of games in Bloomington. What you guys, Maryland, they came in 2 times with, I think, nationally ranked both times, and you guys gave them a pretty good beating two separate years in a row in Bloomington. What was it about those games with Maryland? It seemed like every time you played them out there, you played them in the Big Ten tournament, it was close, but when they came to Bloomington, you guys had their number. Was there anything you remember about those games that stands out that allowed you guys to play so well?
I just remember. I know those 2 times that we did play them, and the environment was crazy in Assembly. I don't know if it might have intimidated them a little bit or what, but I definitely think it put them on their heels a little bit, and we took advantage of it.
The other thing I wanted to ask, your 4 years, you obviously played in a ton of great environments. That North Carolina game when you guys beat them, I think that was your junior year. Then this year, the Duke game, you guys came up short, but that was a great environment. What, in your opinion, was the best Assembly Hall environment that you played in? Which game?
Yeah, I would definitely say that North Carolina game. That was probably my best memory of Assembly Hall, definitely as far as the environment goes. So
I know you're obviously training for what's next in terms of basketball, but you've got this 3-on-3 event coming up. I think it's this weekend in San Antonio. What I guess, how did that all come about, and what are you looking forward to with that event? I mean, what I know a lot of details haven't been given about that. Are you going to be playing with other Big Ten players, or how are the teams going to be set up for that?
Yeah, so from my understanding, it's going to be 32 teams. I think at least one team from each Division I conference. So I'll be playing on a Big Ten team with I think everybody that plays has to be a senior. So I think right now it's me, Jay Sean Tate, and Nate Mason as far as the guys that's already confirmed. I think it'll be one more. So from what they told me, it'll be a couple pool play games and then like a tournament-style bracket. And the grand prize will be $100,000, split between 4 people. So I would definitely say that's the best part about it.
Yeah. 3-on-3, that's I'm sure you haven't done one of those since middle school or high school. I mean, how different is that going to be for you going out there, not only playing with guys that you've competed against for your whole career, but then playing 3-on-3? I mean, how do you get prepared for something like that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a lot of fun. Definitely playing with those guys. 3-on-3, you know, it's a lot of court you can work with, a lot of open space. You know, that gives you a chance to operate. So I think it'll definitely be fun from that perspective. And just to prepare, you know, I'm gonna try to get a couple 3-on-3 games going here. You know, maybe with some of the seniors that's still around.
Yeah.
And just try to prepare that way.
And then beyond that, you obviously have aspirations of playing professionally somewhere, whether that be in the NBA, the G League, somewhere in Europe. You know, I'm sure you're open to whatever. How do you envision these next couple of months playing out for you? You're going to try to get workouts with NBA teams, and then when do you really start, I guess, trying to lock things down in terms of which teams you'll try to work out for, and then figuring out what you'll do next?
Right. Well, you know, I'm just focused on, you know, doing my best, and then, you know, letting God handle the rest as far as that goes. I think right now I'm still trying to figure out an agent and get locked in on an agent, and hopefully I can do that within the next few days. And then, you know, just go from there as far as there's talks about maybe I'll get into the POTB tournament, so that would be something good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe give me some opportunities to get more workouts, NBA workouts, and then just go from there.
Last question for you, Rob. It's actually a two-part question. Next year's IU team, how different do you think it's going to look from this year's team? Obviously, a lot of seniors are going to be gone, a lot of new guys coming in. And then also, in terms of the returning guys, who are maybe, in your mind, one or two guys that fans should watch to maybe surprise some people next year or make a big offseason leap? I think a lot of people are curious about what Race Thompson can do next season, but obviously Justin Smith's another guy coming back. It seems like there's a lot of unknowns with the roster in terms of, you know, younger players, but I guess how do you know, it's very early, but how do you see the team shaping up next year, and who are maybe in your mind one or two guys that people should be looking out for next year? Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting next year. I'm excited to see, you know, how things go for them. I know they still, when I talked to the coaching staff, they said they're still trying to recruit and see how that turns out. But I think Justin definitely has a chance to make a major jump, and I think he will. I think also Race is going to be a good addition as far as, you know, having another big that can mix it up. He's been practicing for a year with us, so, you know, that's an advantage that he has to come in and play right away. I think Devontae has a chance to make a big jump that they're probably, you know, going to need. So I think those would be the guys that I would say to watch for.
All right, Rob. Well, we appreciate you joining us. We like to, on the podcast, have conversations with the outgoing seniors after their careers have wrapped up. And, you know, I think I could speak for most people that have followed the program that it's been a lot of fun to watch you grow as over the 4 years and into just a really good player, and more importantly, a good person that represents the university and the program well. So we wish you the best of luck. Thanks for taking the time, and we will hopefully catch up to you in the future, whether you're, you know, playing here in the U.S. or you're playing abroad. We definitely wish you the best of luck.
Appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Podcast on the Brink. We always appreciate you being here. To get more from me and from Alex, visit assemblycall.com and insidethehall.com for complete coverage of Indiana University basketball. If you liked this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend or family member who loves IU basketball as much as you do. You can also support the show by leaving a rating and review on iTunes, which helps us get the word out to more IU fans like yourself. We will be back next week with a new episode. Until then, as always, go Hoosiers.